powerful attacker on the Wujin school team, and without her heavy burden, she would not only be more effective, but would also score a lot of points. One of Yuling's team managed to approach the princess unnoticed. The big guy raised his hands up to gain momentum and hit the princess well. Her Majesty listened to Li Mu's endless whining and therefore did not immediately notice the threat that loomed over her. True, in such a situation, it would be difficult for her to dodge. As a result, the enemy managed to make a blow of crushing force that would have knocked anyone down. It seemed to observers that there was no wet spot left from the girls. Li Mu, barely alive, saw what was happening to the princess. Flames roared deafeningly all around. The ring of enemies became closer every minute. The princess still stood on her feet and held off the furious attack of a strong opponent. Flames swirled around Her Majesty, but she tried to survive at all costs. The enemy struck again, this time even stronger than the previous one. The enemy understood that the girls were almost completely at his mercy, and it was only a matter of time before the princess's protection fell. Academy team member Yuling continued to throw blow after blow. Each time the princess's defenses became weaker. Moreover, she had to cover instead of 1-2 people. Meanwhile, other people from the enemy team were getting closer. The girls continued to sit under the shield, unable to regroup and retaliate. It seemed that every next blow would be the last for the girls. But they continued to cover themselves with a shield. At some point, it even seemed to the enemy that the princess's power was inexhaustible, but soon everyone saw that blood was pouring out of the princess's eyes. Her Majesty herself understood that such tension could not be withstood indefinitely. And in the end, she will have to pay for it. The guys from the opposing team started laughing that the princess wanted to become a hero so much that she let the team down. Someone said that because of the princess's stupidity, they would have a lot of points. The princess shouted that she might be stupid, but as long as she was on the team, she was not going to sit idly by and watch her team members being cut into little pieces. Li Mu heard Her Majesty's evil speech with surprise and awe. She understood that the princess was made of a different cloth than herself, and this made itself felt. The princess further growled that even if it was a trap and she fell into it, she might be considered stupid. Her Majesty added that the finale of the battle would put everything in place. Then the princess yelled that if it was about the team, then soon no one would have any questions about her team. She added that there simply would be no one left to ask questions. Amazed by everything that was happening around her, Li Mu saw a circle of light around her. In the first moments, the girl did not understand what this meant. She was too stunned. At this time, Her Majesty managed to wriggle free, and she jumped high into the air, spinning her heavy hammer in her hand. The next moment, the princess sat down next to the stunned Li Mu. As soon as the immediate threat disappeared, the princess immediately used her fire hammer, scattering her hated enemies in different directions. The nature of the battle has changed dramatically. Her Majesty seemed to have almost regained her strength. She tore and tossed. The representatives of the Yuling Academy team scattered in different directions, like a flock of crows at the sight of an eagle. The princess roared even louder than before. She shouted that the opponent had started counting his points early. After all, everyone knows that points should be counted only after the end of the battle. Li Mu was simply delighted with the princess. Her courage, dedication, courage, endurance, faith in her strength. And Her Majesty had many other qualities. The princess threw Li Mu to stay where she was. She herself rushed after the retreating enemies. She shouted that thanks to their trap, she would be able to score a lot of points. Her Majesty rushed on the battlefield in different directions and struck at enemies who had numerical superiority. But despite their advantage, they could not catch the princess. When the enemy thought that they had already squeezed the princess in a vice, the girl always managed to dodge and escape. And her counterattacks were explosive and unexpected. In the excitement of the battle, the princess even lifted large stones into the air. At least it might be more accurate to call them small rocks. Her Majesty used them as weapons. Since there were a lot of opponents, the princess did not hesitate to use any available materials. The main thing for her was to inflict maximum damage on the enemy. So the boulders that came to the princess's hand came in very handy. They bruised and crushed several people from the enemy team. Her Majesty was quite pleased with herself. Soon, the ranks of the Yuling Academy team were greatly thinned. The remaining guys tried to crawl away from the princess, who was striking in all directions. It seemed that everything was over for them. The princess was clearly in shock. Nothing could stop her. Although she only fought alone, her blows were very powerful, and agility allowed him to dodge a counterattack. For a long time, Yuling Academy could not do anything about the raging princess. In panic, they scattered in different directions and only prevented each other from taking cover or attacking. Finally, one guy from Yuling shouted for the guys to remember the training and start working harmoniously and methodically, as they were taught. He recalled that they still had the advantage. The change in tactics had its effect. Soon the blows began to overtake the princess. It wasn't easy for her. When the opponents began to attack all together, it became difficult to dodge. Blood appeared on the princess's face again. She realized that the tension was too great, and there were too many opponents. Something urgently needed to be done to change the situation. The wounded Limu again began to lament that it was all her fault. Without her, the princess would have been able to score much more points. Besides, Her Majesty would not expose herself to such a risk. It was unbearably hard for the girl to watch how the princess fought with all her might, but was still doomed to defeat. Only a miracle could save Her Majesty, but where could it come from? During the battle, the princess shouted to Li Mu that it was too early to write her off, and that she would demonstrate the real art of fighting to Yuling Academy. At least she wasn't going to give up. A guy from the opposing team started yelling that the princess was trying to act like a hero. He also added that she does not care about the interests of the team. She puts her interests above all else. The princess held on with all her might. From the outside, it seemed as if it was made of iron. She silently endured enormous loads and tried not to succumb to the provocations of her opponents. She made a decision for herself that although she was not destined to survive in this battle, she must score maximum points for the team. The princess was going to kill 10 more people. True, soon not tears flowed from Her Majesty's eyes, but real blood. Now it was really all over. There was no way to retreat, and there was no strength to continue the battle. The princess's blood fell on the face of one guy from Yuling Academy. He jumped back in fright, but it was already useless. He even tried to run away, but the guy's face began to burn with a strange burgundy flame. He was shocked by what was happening. The representatives of his team recoiled from the guy in fear. Soon, this guy began to burn with the same burgundy flame. In fact, he turned into a living torch. The guy screamed heart-rendingly, trying to put out the flames with his own hands. His teammates looked at him in horror. They were surprised that a few drops of the princess's blood could do such a terrible thing. Friends could not help the guy. He glowed even brighter, screamed even louder. But soon his cry was cut off at the highest note. His now lifeless body fell onto the frozen ground, but continued to burn. It was even scary to look at the princess. She resembled a terrible demon rising from hell. Her face turned into two huge eyes, blazing with scarlet fire. The princess touched another enemy with her hand, and he also burned brightly, like a pine torch. Meanwhile, the princess kept count of the opponents she was killing. She once again extended her burning hand forward, and already the third enemy turned into a crimson pillar of fire. True, the guy managed to strike the princess with a strong blow with his sword, trying to pierce her. Although the enemy was aiming at Her Majesty's heart, his hand trembled, and the sharp blade of the sword pierced the girl's body below the shoulder. Nevertheless, the wound was very dangerous. At this time, the princess remembered the coach's words. He said that they are a team, and their mistakes are shared by everyone, and Her Majesty is dragging the team down. The princess became furious again. She pulled the shining sword from the wound with her bare hand. Despite the enormous pain, the princess did not even wince. She thought not for herself, but for working for the benefit of the Wujin school team. Then the princess, shouting that she was not going to pull the team down, rushed into another attack. It seems she no longer had any strength left. Her Majesty used only her will. Here is another member of the Yuling Academy team who received a fatal blow and was eliminated from the game. The princess no longer looked much like a person. Her body was heating up more and more. Seeing the monster that the princess had turned into, the guys from the opposing team got ready to retreat. They were not afraid to fight against humans, But now it was not a human being in front of them. The judges again exchanged comments. The Divine Moon's mentor noticed that the princess's mad blood had activated again. Old Lady Kong Lao added that it is even worse now. The bearded old lady whispered that the uncontrolled combustion of soul power was burning the life of the princess. Even in illusion, Her Majesty managed to cause herself harm that was significant in real life. The prince shouted that it was urgent to stop the competition and remove the princess from there in order to calm her down. It was unbearable for him to look at the crazy actions of the girl dear to him. True, a representative of the Divine Moon Academy stated that such a decision would not be fair to other participants in the competition. They listened to the old man's voice. The old man muttered that the prince was trying to use his position to influence the outcome of the competition. To which he replied that he was simply worried about his sister, whose health was at risk. The princess was truly in a very terrible state. Blood was oozing from her mouth, nose, and eyes. The wounded shoulder burned with fire. The girl literally fell off her feet from fatigue. But Her Majesty was by no means going to give up. She believed that as long as her heart kept beating, she must continue to fight for herself and her comrades. The princess took a fighting stance and was about to send several more people to the next world. Desperate blows flew in her direction, but she repelled them with a wall of purple fire. Then Her Majesty again rushed to the attack. She also wanted to kill a couple of enemies to get a few more points for the team. That was all the princess could think about. She just needed to destroy a few more opponents. And the princess tried to squeeze the last juices out of her collapsing body. Thoughts were confused in her head. The wide blade of a long, sharp sword. The blade was covered in blood. It continued to glisten with metal, but it also had the crimson bloody reflections of human blood on it. The princess's eyes became almost human, although they still retained that terrible red hue of hell. In the eyes of Her Majesty, one could read one feeling: surprise. The members of the Yuling school team opened their mouths and widened their eyes in amazement. It seemed to them that this was not real. The guys couldn't believe what happened to Her Majesty. Nevertheless, a long sword stuck out from the princess's chest like a stake. It looks like Her Majesty has been stabbed in the back. The tip of the sword pierced right through her body and came out at the top of her chest. Then, the smartly dressed guy silently pulled his sword from the princess's body. Her bloody body fell to the ground and convulsed for the last time. There was deathly silence. The sharp-dressed guy muttered that the princess couldn't even control the power of her soul. The guy added that at this rate the princess would burn her soul. For some time the guy stood silently, apparently thinking about something. None of the Yuling school team dared to break the silence. Silence hung in the air like an axe. Then, the guy dressed to the nines looked back at the motionless body of the princess and muttered that someone needed to do this. He added that the princess needed to leave the competition and rest. The princess opened her eyes. The remnants of life still glimmered in her body. The thought that she had let the team down was running through her mind again. The girl continued to reproach herself for the points for the team. An image of Chu Xingqian appeared in the princess's fevered brain, saying that Her Majesty was the most powerful attacker of the entire team, so she should not risk herself. The rapid patter of feet could be heard nearby in the snowy area. Therefore, a group of people did not have to fear that other commands would hear them and try to attack. It was rushing towards the rest of the Wujian school team, some of the people who were with Li Mu. The girl was carried because her injuries were too serious. The guys called Chu Xingqian and reported that the princess was no longer alive. They added that it was an unequal fight, and Her Majesty had no chance. It was a difficult loss. The guys explained to Chu Xingqian that they could not save the princess. There were too many opponents. They only managed to pick up Li Mu during the confusion. Out of the corner of his eye, Chu Xingqian saw a strange expression on Hu Songlai's face. The guy looked back at Chu Xingqian warily, and he seemed to have a guilty expression on his face. Meanwhile, the guys reported to Chu Xingqian that the enemies seemed to know everything about their movements, and they could not manage to escape from the enemy team. This raised some questions. The guys also said that their pursuers had finally left them behind. The enemy switched to confrontation with Qinshan Academy. This gave them the opportunity to escape. The person who killed the princess was Wen Mao, who just happened to represent Qingshan Academy. True, the guy did not appear alone. He came with part of his team. The Yulin school officials started yelling at Wen Mao that he had stolen their glasses. They fought with the princess for a long time. They had a lot of dead, and Wen Mao took the glasses for himself. Wen Mao didn't like this kind of talk. He said that the guys from Yuling school are just talking to him and trying to stall for time. The guy added that it was time to end things with them. Her teammates supported Wen Mao's thoughts. They began vying with each other to shout that it was time to end Yuelin Academy. The guys got very excited and were ready to fight. The representatives of Qingshan Academy looked quite menacing, and their very appearance alone caused fear in the enemy. Moreover, the guys got close and already wanted to start the attack. The guys from Yuling Academy realized that things were bad. It was not at all like fighting a whole crowd against one princess. Now they were confronted by quite serious opponents. Yuling Academy began to retreat, or rather, simply run away. Seeing this, one of the guys on the opposing team showed one characteristic gesture that was well known in his team. Soon, swords with red hilts appeared near the retreating Yuling boys. Swords were flying from above, and there were a lot of them. They quickly approached the fleeing people. Soon, the representatives of Yuling's team were literally trapped, surrounded by huge swords that closed all opportunities for retreat. The audience was delighted that the huge sword was installed in almost a few seconds. The spectators shouted greetings to Murongji, who was a disciple of the great Qingshan. Spectators prepared for an entertaining spectacle. The Yueling Academy team was surrounded. They could not retreat, which means they would have to fight to the last to save lives. The public knew that Qingshan Academy specialized in swordsmanship. The guys used all the fighting spirits as swords. Everyone hoped to enjoy their swordsmanship. It is clear that Yueling Academy could not do anything against such guys. Already before the battle, it was clear that they would have huge losses, and maybe no one would survive. Soon, Qingshan Academy began to descend over the place where the guys from the other team were trapped. Wen Mao was the first to open the hunting season for the Yueling Academy team. Qingshan Academy was gradually surrounded by the enemy. The ring was shrinking every minute. It was already clear to many how this unequal battle would end. It seemed that the last minutes of participation in the competition had come for the guys from Yueling Academy. They couldn't even come up with any battle tactics. The guys from Qingshan were too confident. But fortunately for Yueling, the host announced that the dangerous poison zone was getting larger. Therefore, he advised the participants in the 11th room to move to a safe place. Indeed, most of the map, which until this time was still a safe zone, was now painted in a poisonous dark purple danger color. A small area near the river was still safe, and the villages and surrounding forests would soon be filled with a poisonous fog, killing all living things. All the participants in the competition who were still alive listened to the words of the presenter. And Yulin's team was so lucky. They miraculously escaped inevitable death. But the host also revealed that in the final save zone, there is a bonus item called 1,000-Year Ice. The team that finds it was promised 20 points. Chu Xingqian and the remnants of his team were one of the first to flee. 20 points were not too many for anyone, and for the weaker Wujin school team, they were especially important. But the swordsmen from Qingshan Academy were not going to be left behind either. Moreover, the guys considered themselves the right to take whatever they liked. These were really dashing guys. Other academies also heard the words of the competition leader. Nobody was going to miss the chance to get 20 points. Apparently, the safe zone will soon be very crowded. Chu Xingqian shouted into the intercom to his team members. The guy announced that everyone who heard him should head to the eastern moat of the city and take the 1,000-Year Ice. The cry was heard by a noble guy with red hair. The guys who were with Limu also heard it. If someone was closer to the right spot, there was a chance to score 20 points. It must be said that at this time there were already several strange people in the safe zone near the eastern ravine. The guys stayed together and were wrapped in black cloaks. The guys used the artifact. Someone reported that all targets had been implanted, and now they were all heading to the safe zone. It looks like everything was going according to plan. The mysterious persons continued talking among themselves for some time, consulting about something. Then, one of them said that the right time had come, and it was time to get to work. Almost immediately, the artifact was launched. It was clear from its appearance that it was a fairly powerful and expensive artifact. It was also clear that the guys knew how to handle it skillfully. Soon, the people in black retreated some distance from the artifact. It glowed with a pale green glow. Large cracks began to spread out from it in different directions. Meanwhile, not far from this place, someone was running, deeply crushing the snow as they ran. Judging by the large steps, similar to jumps, the man was quite tall. True, the man did not run on his own. A wounded girl with blue hair was hanging on his back. It cannot be said that it was unpleasant for the guy to carry such a beautiful girl. Suddenly, ahead of them, Shuzuo Wu and the girl saw a strange greenish glow. Reflections of an incomprehensible light reflected on the sparkling snow and fell on the faces of the children. The noble guy looked in amazement at all the different shimmers of green light. He had never seen anything like it. Shuzuo Wu was also disturbed by black dots in the distance. The green glow was getting closer, and soon more details could be seen. Apparently, several people were running away from this radiance, and black objects were moving behind them. Gradually, the fugitives themselves in the green light approached the guys. Shuzuo Wu and the girl with blue hair did not understand what to do, whether to run away or help others. Soon, the fleeing people were already near the boy and girl. They screamed heart-rendingly, and they were chased by terrible green skulls, which were filled with radiance. The picture was truly terrifying. People screamed in horror and begged for help. The skulls passed through their body and filled the bodies of the unfortunate people with a terrible, ominous light. It was very scary to see this. Before these creatures living in the emerald light, people were completely defenseless. The scream of horror of the unfortunate victims merged with the scream of glee from the terrible green skulls. Monsters from the other world did whatever they wanted with people's bodies. The human body was nothing to them. Such eerie pictures could frighten anyone. The heart-rending cries of helpless people rang in the air. There was also a characteristic smell of ozone, which apparently emanated from the green glow. It seemed like there would be no end to this horror. Shuzuo Wu and the blue-haired girl looked at everything happening around them in silent amazement. The guys realized that they had now lost the opportunity to escape from this. True, you still had to be able to fight these creatures. It was obvious that conventional weapons could not do anything to them. This time the enemy was incorporeal and simply disgusting. Those running away shouted at the boys to hide, because these were evil spirits that fed on souls and took over the body. They shouted that the soul would be damaged in the real world. The escapees also reported that they were the first to reach the safe zone. But it turned out that evil spirits were floating on the ice in the eastern ravine. People had no chance of salvation. The beauty remembered that in the village it was said that many wandering souls from the far north froze to death in the lake east of the village. But why did these souls become active now? People in black cloaks knew much more about wandering spirits. The weaker the person, the more effectively the wandering spirit will absorb the soul. This was an unbreakable rule. The people in black cloaks came to the decision that the soul eaters at the bottom of the river were a good opportunity to weaken everyone. Evil spirits quickly overtook their victims, and there was almost no way to escape. One of the black-hooded men muttered that Chu Xingchen would not be able to escape this time. No matter how cunning and nimble this guy is, he cannot cope with such a task. Meanwhile, a turquoise glow spread in all directions throughout the secret world. From a distance, the green skulls seemed like clouds of black specks. The glow was accompanied by the smell of ozone. Soon, Chu Xingchen and his companions saw a strange phenomenon. True, the guy still had no idea what kind of green glow it was, and what a huge threat it poses to everyone. Observers of the competition clearly saw everything that was happening in the secret world, and they were shocked by the green skulls. Almost no one knew what it was. People thought it was a test. True, the smartest declared that these were wandering ghosts that fed on souls. But it seemed impossible to see such a thing in a controlled secret world designed for teams. The coaches of the Wujin school team were also amazed and excited. They understood that something out of the ordinary was happening, and therefore feared for the fate of their guys. The mentor of the Divine Moon Academy said that we need to contact high-ranking masters to stop the tournament before things go too far. The old man understood something. Soon, a terrible cry was heard among the crowd of spectators that soul eaters had appeared in the secret world. Many understood that this posed a direct threat to life and health for the participants. Shizuo Wu's mother began to cry in horror. She screamed for the stupid boy to quickly get away from the ghosts and look for a safe place to hide. But Shizuo Wu certainly didn't hear her. Then the noble guy's mother yelled at her husband to raise his connections and do something to save their son. Shizuo Wu's father rose from his seat and walked towards his people. All this time, an emerald fog, smelling of ozone, spread over more and more territory of the secret world. Soon guys from all teams could watch him. True, everyone reacted to the appearance of a strange fog in their own way. In one team, some of the participants immediately announced that wandering ghosts, soul eaters, had appeared in the safe zone. Some guys literally lost their human appearance out of fright. Who ran away headlong, it is unclear where. There were people who simply watched the alarmists. The Chinchan Academy team had the fastest and most correct reaction. One of the leaders shouted that wandering ghosts had appeared, and therefore everyone was urgently retreating. Chu Xingchen wondered why wandering souls that had been resting at the bottom of the lake for hundreds of years appeared at this time. The guy considered everything that was happening suspicious. The system only confirmed his assumption. She pointed out that only the villagers and the Wujin school team who interacted with the villagers knew about the ghosts at the bottom of the lake. Chu Xingchen's suspicions grew stronger and formed a coherent picture. The guy realized that Hu Songlai had something to do with this matter. The guy waited a long time for his time to do some mischief. Chu Xingchen also wondered why the crazy guys from Xuanqi Academy were not at all afraid of being devoured by soul eaters. The system explained that they apparently have protection from ghosts. The system added that their fake system is probably capable of anything to stop the younger generation. Chu Xingchen muttered to himself that things were very bad. Soon the beauty reported that they encountered soul eaters. She wanted to retreat, but Shizuo Wu resolutely refused. The noble guy decided to stop the dangerous ghosts. Shizuo Wu stood in front of a huge wall of green glow and hordes of wandering ghosts devouring souls. The guy used his lightsaber to hold off the eaters. Quick swings of the sword created something vaguely reminiscent of a cage of light. Only the bars of this peculiar cage sparkled with bright fire, blocking the path. As a result, Shizuo Wu managed to identify both the soul eaters and the creeping green fog. The guy seemed to fence himself off from them with a wall of light, which he created with the help of a sword. The noble guy said that if they retreat, the soul eaters will spread throughout the world. Then it will be much more difficult to deal with them. The guy didn't have a plan. Shizuo Wu stood resolutely in front of the seething turquoise cloud of soul eaters. He wasn't about to back down an inch. True, the guy still had no idea what it would cost him. Observers looked in horror at what the noble guy was doing. He actually managed to hold back the spread of the green fog and its inhabitants for some time. Seeing this, Chu Xingchen screamed at his comrade with all his might. He shouted that Shizuo Wu needed to stop fooling around and get out of there immediately to save his stupid head. In response, Shizuo Wu stated that he could escape, but what would then happen to those people from the village who helped them fight, and then also gave them a lot of supplies for the road? Indeed, by this time, the greenish glow had already reached the outskirts of the village, and its residents could observe it. They understood perfectly well what it was and how it threatened them. The villagers also understood that no one would help them cope with this disaster. They thought that they had probably not suffered enough yet, because the suffering for them would only increase. Therefore, Shizuo Wu said that he would fight for the villagers, for each of them. The noble guy said that we need to remain human until our last convulsive breath. Chu Xingchen listened to his comrade and contacted other team members. The guy was greatly impressed by Shizuo Wu's words. So he came up with one plan that could work. Chu Xingchen ordered all his team members to immediately retreat to the edge of the safe zone to save their lives and prevent the ghosts from devouring their souls. The order was not specified. The guys listened to Chu Xingchen's words in surprise. They understood that the guy apparently was not going to retreat with them, but they did not understand at all what he was planning and why. The guy told the guys to leave immediately, since every second of delay could cost them their lives in the future. The fox directly asked Chu Xingchen what he was going to do. Suddenly, the guy grabbed Hu Songlai, who was blithely standing next to him, into his arms. None of those watching understood what was happening to Chu Xingchen. Someone thought he was crazy. The guy muttered to the fox that it was time to get even with someone. At this time, Chu Xingchen was thinking about the mysterious people in black cloaks. Well, it was not for nothing that he kept Hu Songlai under his arm. Someone tried to bandage his wounded hand on his own. Teeth turned out to be quite reliable assistance in this matter. After all, there was no time to waste. Every minute was valuable. An emerald fog was approaching, in which hordes of terrible creatures were hiding. It was necessary to get myself in order so that I could withstand a good forced march. The girl had no one to rely on. She could only rely on herself. In such an extreme situation, it was very difficult for the wounded person. But it was necessary to go further away. Xu Zuowu at this time was also fighting alone against an outnumbered enemy. The guy had a hard time, but he knew how to endure hardships, especially for a just cause. The green mist, filled with countless hordes of monsters, brought out hidden qualities in many people. Some turned out to be brave, while others began to tremble at the slightest danger. The fox shouted after Chu Xingchen. She wanted to go with the guy. The girl remembered very well that he had once saved her from a painful death. Now he himself was in danger. The girl from the other team shouted to the fox that Chu Xingchen seemed to know what he was doing, and any assistance would only interfere with him and constrain his actions. It made sense. In addition, the fox liked this girl, and she always listened to her words. But the fox also really didn't want to let Chu Xingchen go to his inevitable death, as it seemed to her. During this time, the people in black cloaks continued to control the spread of wandering ghosts. These were indeed the guys from the Xuanqi Academy team. Soon, they received news that the spread of ghosts devouring souls had been stopped. The black cloaks analyzed the situation and realized that it was because of Shi Zuowu. Someone from Xuanqi's team muttered that it was already clear that the stupid guy would try to stop the inevitable. But then they added that since Shi Zuowu was going to die, well, true, soon a bomb, in the form of a flying Hu Songlai, hit the people in black cloaks. This was quite unexpected, not only for Songlai himself, but also for the entire Xuanqi team. Hu Songlai, in the best traditions of air combat, flew in from the side that was not being watched. The guy had a fairly strong forehead and turned out to be quite useful as a battering ram. The Xuanqi Academy team was very surprised that they were completely attacked. They knew that all the teams rushed into the scattered space, running away from the spreading green infection. But it seems that no one was afraid of the wandering ghosts devouring souls. Moreover, this man apparently understood who was behind this, without exaggeration, catastrophe. This person was, of course, the incomparable Chu Xingchen. He was very angry and generously treated the people in black robes with strong blows. Representatives of the Xuanqi Academy were surprised by the guy's courage, or even arrogance. They saw that he dared to challenge them alone, and he wasn't even afraid of ghosts. Moreover, Chu Xingchen immediately rushed into battle. Hatred for the enemy fueled the guy. But despite the feelings that overwhelmed him, Chu Xingchen did not lose his vigilance for a minute. The stunned people in black cloaks had to fight. Apparently, Chu Xingchen was in a determined mood, and only a proper rebuff or even his murder could stop the guy. To the surprise of the Xuanqi Academy team representatives, Chu Xingchen turned out to be quite a strong opponent. It turned out that in a normal fight, it was very difficult to defeat him. But the people in black cloaks were not simple at all. They decided to use a little magic to equalize the forces. Moreover, it was necessary to urgently solve the problem with Shi Zuowu. In a word, Chu Xingchen was definitely disturbing the guys from Xuanqi Academy. Therefore, quite strong energy charges soon flew at him. True, the guy defended himself against the enemy. Moreover, Chu Xingchen managed to kill one of the representatives of the Xuanqi Academy. It really seemed that the death of their comrade was not at all important to the people in black cloaks, but they wanted to destroy Chu Xingchen at all costs. The guy himself came to them, and at the most crucial moment, which interfered with the plans of the guys from Xuanqi Academy. The guy dodged the enemy's attack, and almost immediately found himself behind him. Chu Xingchen thought that he needed to hit the people in black cloaks harder, so that he wouldn't have to finish them off. With the next blow, the guy drove another enemy deep into the ground. The blast wave from the impact spread in circles. The people in black cloaks even swayed a little in the wind. One female person in a black cloak stated that she could not believe that Chu Xingqian himself had come into her arms. She added that the guy saw her even when she was invisible. Chu Xingqian looked at the girl in the black cloak, but did not understand what she meant when she said that he could see her, even when she was invisible. The guy was waiting for the continuation. True, the continuation unexpectedly followed from Hu Songlai. Still wallowing in the mud, Hu Songlai muttered that Chu Xingqian was indeed the chosen one, that there was no doubt about it. Apparently, Hu Songlai was very impressed by Chu Xingqian. But to track Songlai's train of thought, it is necessary to go back in time a few minutes ago. After Chu Xingqian grabbed the traitor, he began to run. At first, Hu Songlai did not understand at all why Chu Xingqian decided to carry him when he could move on his own. But the traitor soon realized that something was wrong. He began to beg and beg Chu Xingqian to let him go. Hu Songlai also said that you should not run towards ghosts. It was difficult for Chu Xingqian to escape while holding the fluttering Hu Songlai. Besides, I'm tired of his endless whining. Therefore, the guy decided to use one cunning, but quite reliable trick. Chu Xingqian put his index finger and thumb together and quickly pressed several points on Hu Songlai's back. The movements were light and very fast, but the effect was amazing. Hu Songlai was paralyzed. He could neither move nor speak. Now the traitor could only lie there like a log. True, he could still reflect on everything that was happening to him. Chu Xingqian then asked the system if it could track Xuanqi's location using Hu Songlai's communication system. The system said that she could be discovered, but she would try. At this time, Shizuo Wu, like a titan, alone held back huge hordes of the forces of darkness. Everyone understood that the noble guy could not withstand such tension for long. Chu Xingqian was also aware of this. He also saw the cracks in the wall created by Shizuo Wu. The guy understood that he needed to find a fake system and fix the cracks. There was one more problem. After the invasion of wandering ghosts, communication with the outside world disappeared, and the guys did not have the opportunity to report what happened and get help. Chu Xingqian understood that he needed to act as quickly as possible and correct the situation. Otherwise, it would be bad not only for Shizuo Wu, but also for the rest of humanity. At this time, the system asked the guy to weaken the girl from the other team, and the system would try to deprive her of her powers by removing her system and also destroy the artifacts. At this time, the girl whispered that she now understood why Chu Xingqian was so strong. Indeed, the guy could fight on par with the king of martial arts. It was cool. The girl seemed to read Chu Xingqian's thoughts. She told him not to flatter himself with the hope that she would just throw artifacts left and right. Nevertheless, the enemy girl conceived something and began to put it into action. Energy flashes as well as thin energy threads were visible around her. Soon the girl said that since Chu Xingqian is so strong, he should try to fight with one person. She kept her hand on the shoulder of the copy of Chu Xingqian. Soon, she released this copy in the direction of Chu Xingqian. The girl was grinning wryly at this time. She seemed confident that she could deal with the guy, and he would be in her power. True, Chu Xingqian had a different opinion. Although it must be said that he still needed to figure out what the enemy had come up with, and how he could outwit him, or even better, defeat him. The task was truly difficult. Chu Xingqian not only kept his attention on the enemy, he also kept under control that Shizuo Wu was holding back the Soul Eaters with enormous value. Meanwhile, huge waves of emerald fog occupied the entire center of the secret world and almost the entire safe zone. Most teams retreated as the fog spread. The Qingshan Academy team found itself on the edge of the safe zone. At the moment, the guys were relatively safe. They decided to wait for further developments. Wen Mao reported that he noticed signs that the green fog had slowed down and almost stopped. The guy noticed that apparently someone was holding back its spread. Soon, the guys saw that a small, nimble figure was rapidly approaching them. The guys were even wary. They understood that anything could happen at this time. Actually, everything turned out to be not so scary. The boys soon learned that a Wujian school fox was approaching them. The fox seemed to be very excited, but the guys were on alert. The guys from Qingshan Academy asked the fox not to come close to them. They were afraid of a trap. One could expect anything from Chu Xingchen and those sneaks from Wujin School. But the fox said that this was not a trap at all, and that there was no point in gaining points now. Lisa looked very upset and worried. She wanted to ask for a favor. The guys from Chinchan Academy were perplexed. Not only did they not expect cooperation with other teams, but now they were going to be asked for some kind of favor. Chu Xingchen moved very quickly. He used different techniques and stances. Chu changed his position in space so rapidly that it seemed like a meteor was flying. True, Chu Xingchen's trajectory was somewhat broken. So in that sense, it wasn't exactly like a meteor in the night sky, but the speed of his movement was very high. At the same time, Chu Xingchen did not have much of an advantage. Although he put in a lot of effort, the opponent moved and used techniques just as well as he did. The guy deftly parried the enemy's blows, using well-executed blocks. True, it took quite a lot of energy from him, but it was necessary to save strength at the beginning of the battle. Then, Chu Xingchen attacked, and it was the enemy's turn to parry the blows using remarkably well-executed blocks. It was clear that this was a waste of energy, and the enemy was saving his strength. The fight was quite remarkable. Good high-level fight. It seemed that this enchanting battle was being carried out by two kings of martial arts. The movements were so precise and swift, but the enemy girl just chuckled. She muttered, "No matter how strong Chu Xingchen is, his shadow, his exact copy, will not yield to him." It was a very good move. Chu Xingchen himself already understood that in this battle, a frontal attack would not lead to anything good. He cannot reach the enemy and inflict damage on him, just as he himself does not miss. Very often, Chu Xingchen and his opponent will perform the same blow or use the same technique at the same time. From the outside, it may seem quite funny, but on the other hand, this greatly complicates the battle itself. In addition, it does not allow either side to gain an advantage. It seems that such a battle could last indefinitely, or both sides will fall to the ground at the same time, completely exhausted. But neither one nor the other scenario suited Chu Xingchen. He needed to win. Then the system appeared and started teasing Chu Xingchen. She said he didn't look like himself in this fight, but his opponent is very similar to him. Chu snapped at the system. The guy said that it would be better if the system helped him fight than mocked him. The system stated that it could give valuable advice and suggested that we fight faster while we still have strength. Chu Xingchen pointed at his opponent and said how he could fight him quickly if he was as strong and used the same kung fu techniques as him. It was some kind of paradox. Chu Xingchen's opponent was truly at his best. His movements were smooth and measured. He acted methodically, without forgetting or missing anything, just like Chu Xingchen. Chu Xingchen grimaced and seemed as if he would cry from powerlessness. How could he defeat such an ideal opponent who did not have a single flaw during the battle? The system told Chu Xingchen that in this case, he should use his own weaknesses during the battle. The guy resolutely began to protest that he did not and could not have weaknesses. The system snorted contemptuously. And she said that everyone has weaknesses, even the most ideal ones. Then the insidious system extended a lettuce bush and placed it between the two opponents. The guys did not have time to react to the appearance of such a valuable vegetable, and in the heat of battle, tore the salad to shreds. As soon as the combatants saw what had happened, both rushed to save the salad. But apparently, the salad could no longer be helped. The guys were so upset that they even forgot that they were supposed to fight each other. They cared more about the fate of the vegetables than the outcome of the battle. But the system that controlled the process began to push Chu Xingchen to continue fighting and finally deliver a couple of blows that could break through the enemy's defense. But it must be added that the system also knew some of Chu Xingchen's other weaknesses. Moreover, the weaknesses were so disgusting that they led to involuntary vomiting. It was true that not only Chu Xingchen was vomiting, but his opponent was also vomiting. After all, not only did they have the same strengths, their weaknesses and vices were also very, very similar. That's how, with the help of the system, and thanks to its subtle knowledge of Chu Xingchen and his weaknesses, some advantage over the enemy soon appeared. This could well decide the outcome of the battle. The enemy girl who was watching the battle also realized that the matter smelled of kerosene. She feverishly thought about what actions to take to return the battle to the right direction. At this time, it seemed that Chu Xingchen had already begun to simply mock the enemy. True, he himself did not quite understand how he managed such techniques. He didn't even suspect that this was possible. Chu Xingchen was surprised at himself that he was able to pull off such tricks. The system explained that this is, after all, just a shadow, and therefore it can also be used. Chu Xingchen reproached the system for not pointing this out to him at the very beginning of the battle. Then everything would have been over a long time ago. But now Chu understood how to destroy his double. True, just at that very moment, the girl stuck her hand between his ribs and apparently tried to feel something there. After this, Chu Xingchen became numb from a sharp and unexpected pain. The girl whispered to Chu Xingchen that she had always found it strange why he didn't use artifacts. She thought it might have something to do with the fact that he was the chosen one. Hu Songlai watched everything that was happening with surprise and interest. It seemed that he was just waiting for the last of his strength to leave Chu Xingchen in order to mock him. Chu Xingchen didn't understand what was happening to him at this moment. And the girl continued to say that she believed that Chu did not use artifacts so as not to reveal her identity. Then the girl said that she understood. He doesn't use artifacts because he doesn't want to. Chu Xingchen doesn't use them because his system can't make them. The girl also stated that they were able to thoroughly test Chu Xingchen's system. They carried out this testing a long time ago and were able to establish that Chu Xingchen's system is very weak. The girl even laughed and said that she had not seen such a dilapidated system space for a long time. All this time, she carried out certain manipulations. Finally, she managed to find what she had been looking for so long. A joyful cry escaped her throat. She muttered that when she presented the system to the Lord, he would be very pleased. Chu Xingchen was writhing in pain at this time, and the system was screaming loudly that they were trying to get her out. The situation was critical, not to mention the ghosts breaking through. Indeed, the girl, with the help of skillful manipulations, had already almost captured Chu Xingchen's system. There is nothing left, and the system will be forever removed from his body. But, fortunately, Chu Xingchen managed to react at the very last moment. He managed to grab the tip of the system and tried to hold it. The whole future depended on it. Chu Xingchen also started yelling at the system that she had allowed herself to be deceived by a fake system, and now she had folded her paws and was going to give up. Chu Xingchen was very angry. The upset system replied that she did not expect that they would look into the place where she was hiding. She also added that the girl's system is 10 times stronger than that guy's system. The system also asked Chu Xingchen to let her go. Otherwise, there was a huge risk that his soul would be torn into pieces. In addition, the system said that it could not fight the enemy. Chu Xingchen muttered that he could not help the system since he was fighting a shadow. He begged the system in every possible way to pull itself together and try to escape from the clutches of the enemy. The girl knew what she was doing. She deliberately diverted Chu Xingchen's attention to shadowboxing so that she could easily take over his system. Just a little more, and the operation will be completed. True, Chu Xingchen was able to resist for now. He could continue to fight with the shadow, and at the same time not allow the system to be taken away completely. It was all thanks to his spiritual strength. The girl in the black cloak muttered that although Chu Xingchen demonstrated miracles of incredible durability, she would still see whether Shizuowu would be just as resilient. The girl put her artifact to work again, and the wandering ghosts devouring souls became even more active. New hordes of these creatures rushed to attack. Seeing all this army, Chu Xingchen was seriously afraid for the noble Shizuowu. He knew that his comrade would stand to the last, even in the face of mortal danger. The green skulls with powerful jerks tried to break through the barrier that the noble guy had set up. For now, the barrier held them back, but at any moment everything could change. Shizuowu understood that he was not made of iron, and his strength would sooner or later run out. And all this green evil spirits would break through first into the secret world, and then into the outside world. The noble guy held on with all his strength. At the same time, he saw that there were more and more green skulls every minute. He didn't understand where they were coming from. Unexpectedly, someone was able to break through the barrier that Shizuowu had put up, and this someone managed to hit the noble guy. The impact threw him far back. A girl with blue hair ran up in time to relieve her comrade at the combat post. but the girl had much less strength to hold off such a horde of monsters. At this time, Shuzuo Wu saw that the flame at the end of his sword had become significantly weaker. This was a very bad sign, and it happened at the worst possible time. The noble guy informed his girlfriend that the sword formation would soon be destroyed. He added that his sword had lost almost all its strength, and Shu himself was not in the best shape. The green skulls tried to break through the barrier. The boys wouldn't have cared enough even if only a couple of scary skulls had broken through the wall of light, while the girl with blue hair managed to hold off the advancing creatures alone. It seemed that Zuo Wu would get a little respite and would be able to hold out for a while longer. But Shuzuo Wu stated that his spiritual power was depleted and the sword formation would be destroyed very soon, so he would not be able to protect his companion. The guy told her to run away. The girl with blue hair said that they should run away together. They will be able to develop enough speed to escape from the Soul Eaters and be able to save themselves. Noble Shuzuo Wu replied that he could not do that. He will be tormented by remorse. Perrin felt a sense of responsibility towards the villagers who were so kind. The girl with blue hair did not want to leave without her friend. The guys were left alone, almost completely exhausted in the face of mortal danger. Help was coming from nowhere. Horrible green skulls reached out to the guys who had been blocking their path for so long. It was clear that when this stream of monsters broke through, the friends would lose their minds or their lives. The picture was truly mesmerizing. The two heroes faced thousands and thousands of enemies. Two young, fragile human beings held the defense with a huge effort of will. But soon, representatives of the Qinshan school appeared on the battlefield. They immediately yelled at the guys to hold on and not let the Sword of Light be destroyed. The help came in very handy. Shuzuo Wu looked at the guys who had just arrived with great relief and gratitude. But he understood that it was too early to relax, and he continued to hold the line. Meanwhile, Wen Mao declared that Shuzuo Wu was worthy of his noble name. Only a true warrior can single-handedly resist the hordes of ghosts devouring souls. Shuzuo Wu looked tiredly at one of the leaders of the Qingshan team. The noble guy was grateful to him for his good words, but he no longer had the strength to even thank him for his support. Meanwhile, the Qinshan Academy team members became more and more numerous. The guys arrived almost in full force. At least everyone who was still alive came. To understand why Qinshan Academy came to the rescue, we must go back in time to the moment when the fox emerged from the green fog in front of the amazed Qinshan boys. The fox explained to the guys that Shuzuo Wu almost single-handedly restrains stray ghosts in order to save the villagers from harm. Their team doesn't have enough strength to hold back the monsters. Therefore, the fox decided to ask for help from the Qingshan, who were rumored to be a strong and noble team. Wen Mao and his comrades thought for a while. Lisa already thought it was all over. She understood that the guys valued their lives and would not want to go to certain death for those whom they had never known before. That was the end. Wen Mao muttered that when they were running in fear to save their lives, there was a guy who was not afraid to stand alone against a horde of wandering ghost eaters. The Qingshan always considered themselves the strongest, and they felt ashamed that when another person showed miracles of courage and dedication, they ran away cowardly, like some kind of weaklings. As a result, the guys from Qinshan Academy turned to the fox so that she would tell them where to go to help Shuri. For the fox, this was an unexpected but pleasant and promising decision. The guys from Qinshan Academy were very good at fighting. With such help, it was possible to hold back the onslaught of Soul Eaters for quite a long time. This gave everyone hope that everything would be fine. When the guys from the academy arrived at the scene of the fight, they immediately joined the battle. Despite the fact that there were a lot of enemies, the guys with fresh forces were able to easily push them back. These were real warriors, brave and dexterous. Fighting was their thing. Moreover, they were inspired by Shuzuo Wu's noble deed and wanted to demonstrate their strength. Now the scales had swung in the other direction, and there was no need to be afraid that the Soul Eaters would break through the barrier at any moment and greedily pounce on everyone they could meet. Representatives of the Qingshan Academy lined up near the wall and were ready to hold back the wave of wandering ghosts as long as necessary until complete victory. The guys from the girls' team also did not want to stay away from such a glorious battle. And the girl, who was in her grandfather's body, was generally tearing and throwing in all directions. Young energy, imprisoned in such an old body, flowed like a fountain. Therefore, the grandfather girl could well be used as a tank. True, this was not necessary yet. Wen Mao sincerely praised the girls. He said they were a great team, and he wouldn't mind having such allies. True, the girl did not answer the young womanizer. At this time, representatives of Qinshan Academy were shouting at the top of their lungs that the fox from Wuzhan Academy was the best. The guys were inspired by the battle into which the fox invited them. The fox really jumped in over his head. She was on time everywhere, motivated everyone, and tried to control everything. The guys from Qinshan Academy praised her energy, but the fox had already rushed towards the somewhat confused Shizuo Wu. The fox yelled why he relaxed. She said that it was better that instead of standing, he started strengthening the sword formation. When the guy tried to explain to the fox that his spiritual power had run out, the fox screamed that he would be filled with spiritual power. She added that the most important thing is that he does his job. Seeing delay or sluggishness, the fox became furious and showed by example how to work. Soon things got better, and the situation improved literally before our eyes. Shizuo Wu sincerely thanked the fox for bringing help to the battlefield in such a timely manner. The boy and girl with blue hair thought that inevitable death awaited them. The noble guy also thanked the guys from Qinshan Academy, who showed miracles of courage and valor. Everyone tried to make their significant contribution to the common cause. Without wasting any time, Shizuo Wu began to restore the resource of his sword. Of course, in the company of like-minded people, fighting shoulder to shoulder was much more pleasant and safer. The noble guy already had remarkable willpower and was ready to fight monsters alone. But now that he saw support, he vowed not to take a step back. The girl saw that events on the battlefield did not go according to plan. Not only did Zuo Wu not give up, but he also had assistance. The girl hated such a stupid display of camaraderie. She hoped that this rogue from Wujin school would soon say goodbye to his life. They worked so hard to prepare for the disaster, but these guys playing heroes ruined everything. But despite the difficulties with the spread of wandering ghosts, soul eaters, the girl was still happy. She received her main and most valuable prize. Chu Xingchen was at her feet, and he was in a very poor condition. His eyes were closed and blood was coming from his mouth. But the girl only enjoyed it. She enjoyed her victory. She considered Chu Xingchen to be a truly strong opponent, and the fact that she was able to bypass him and defeat him was entirely her merit. Now Chu Xingchen posed no danger. The guy was squeezed like lemon and looks like he will die soon. But for the evil girl now, it did not matter. What made her most happy was that she was able to extract the divine selection system from Chu Xingchen. Now he has become an ordinary mediocre guy, and not the chosen one as before. At this time, Hu Songlai ran up to Chu Xingchen, who was sitting motionless, and asked with excitement whether he was still alive or already dead. It was impossible to tell from Chu Xingchen's appearance, but the girl brought clarity when she said that Chu Xingchen did not want to let go of his system, and in all likelihood, his soul was broken into small pieces during the tug-of-war. The girl added that there is no need to think about Chu Xingchen's body, because the main thing is that she was able to extract the system from it. The girl said she would seal the system and keep it in a safe. The girl also praised Hu Songlai. She said that this time he did a very good job and she would help him move up the career ladder. The girl added that it was time to break the seal of the Soul Eaters. She smiled and said that she would then see how long the Sword of Light and its stupid owner could hold out. The girl in the cloak tried to destroy the seal, but something went wrong again. It didn't have the effect she expected. Instead, something strange was happening. The girl in the black cloak continued to clutch the seal in her hand and looked in bewilderment at the body of Chu Xingchen crouched in front of her. She absolutely did not understand what was happening. Hu Songlai realized that his mistress was at a loss.